Hello everyone. In today's video we will be discussing about consciousness in ICU. This is a very common problem in those ICUs where patients are getting admitted with neurological disorders or trauma cases. And how are we actually assessing consciousness? We mostly use GCS, which is absolutely not for this particular purpose. So we'll see how we can go beyond GCS, 4 score and all and actually focus on consciousness. So this is a 6-step roadmap. First, you must identify there is a consciousness disorder. Then you must remove all the confounders, that is the reversible causes which are affecting the consciousness. Then a standardized repeated examination like GCS. Then an intervention which is both supportive as well as rehab. Then prognosticating by multimodal and a cautious approach. Finally, communicating to the family your support and decisions. So how do you label a patient is having a disorder in consciousness? Severe brain injury with absent or fluctuating wakefulness and awareness. The critical risk over here is misdiagnosis and premature withdrawal of life-sustaining therapy if the terminology is imprecise. Fluctuations can occur from minutes to days. Single exam is therefore unsafe over here. So what is the taxonomy we are using? We can go from stage 1, that is coma, where you are getting absolutely no wakefulness. The patient is totally not awake at any point in time. Then you have vegetative state or unaware state. In this particular state, the patient is wakeful, but he is unaware of the status. So he or she at times is wakeful, but he doesn't seem to be responding to anything that we are doing. Next is the MCS minus, which is the minimally conscious state minus. In this, the awareness signs are there, but there is no language or command following. Here you do find some kind of awareness to language as well. Finally is the functional communication with some kind of use of objects also. Now, coma is often imprecise. The general usage is a GCS of 3 to 8 is coma, but it covers multiple consciousness states as you have seen over here and is designed mainly for traumatic brain injury severity grading, not really a consciousness diagnosis. So the consequences of using this GCS as a marker for consciousness is that we get a lot of diagnostic errors, which leads directly to prognostic errors, affecting the critical decision making that we do. So in ICU, why is this going to be very hard? It is going to be hard because we have confounders also, like we have sedations, we have organ failures which can directly impact your brain. We have environmental factors like a noisy environment, sleep disruption, inconsistent examination. All these things can make the diagnosis of disorder of consciousness in ICU very difficult. So in confounders we have medications, sedations, analgesia, drug interactions, impaired clearance, seizures is a problem, metabolic disorders, electrolytes, endocrine, renal hepatic disorders, glycemia, secondary insults in terms of infection, hydrocephalus, pain, paroxysmal sympathetic hyperactivity. All these things can make your diagnosis very difficult. Seizure is a high yield reversible confounder. Now it matters because it is going to make your diagnosis very difficult if a patient is having non-convulsive seizures and we diagnose as he's unconscious. So follow strict management protocol for treating these things, and EEG is very, very important here for detection. Sedation, of course, you can find it out through the drugs that have been given. It is transient and should get over, provided the organ failure is not there. Then if the organ failure like renal dysfunction is there, you can allow a little more time. So there is no well-defined guidance as to how long we can wait for this. This is something which you have to see based on the pharmacokinetics of the drug that you have used, the organ failure the patient is having. Now treat every exam under sedation as a profound confounder. Next is the behavioral assessment. The diagnosis of disorder of consciousness is a behavioral diagnosis by default. Routine bedside scales tend to miss this particular part. Standardized tools reduce this misdiagnosis. Now, why we have been saying this? Why is GCS and 4 score not enough? GCS lacks sensitivity for subtle awareness signs. Key awareness behaviors are not really captured in the M score or even the E score. And 4 score, it just adds brainstem and respiratory assessment, which again have nothing to do with consciousness. Regarding the gold standard is coma recovery scale reviewed. Now this has the benefit that it is designed to detect subtle awareness signs and classify it into 6 domains with diagnosis based on specific behavior, and it's quite time taking. It takes around 25 to 45 minutes to complete it and is challenging for unstable ICU patients. Now for this purpose, ICU has adapted this into this particular thing that is called CRS-R fast, which is a rapid assessment which can be done under 10 minutes while preserving the sensitivity for awareness detection. Now quick evaluation designed for serial ICU assessment with improved feasibility is seconds. Now both tools enable serial assessment during ICU admission, balancing speed with diagnostic accuracy. Now serial examination is non-negotiable. Do not make any kind of a diagnosis about awareness by just a single examination. So the solution is repeated assessment, track the trajectory and reduce your diagnostic errors. Now examining the patient, how do we optimize this? Make the environment quiet. It should not be a loud and noisy environment. Minimize distractions and competing procedures. Don't do multiple things at the same time. Medications, wean sedation if it is safe, otherwise interpretation is confounded. Use glasses and hearing aids for them if they were already using it. Of course, they can't hear you without their hearing aids. Arousal protocol, maximum arousal with standard protocol, consider positioning the patients. So what are the assessment tool and the comparison? We have the GCS, we have the 4 score, we have seconds and CSR fast. So as you can see, the average time to get GCS is around 1 minute, 4 score is 2 minutes, seconds and CSR fast have similar around 6 to 7 minutes. What are the cognitive motor dissociation? This is covert consciousness, that is the consciousness is there. This is in around 15 to 25%. The patients, they have consciousness, but they are unable to express it. So patients without behavioral command following, so that they have consciousness in EEG and functional MRI. Now CMD cannot be detected on these examination by definition. Assessment remains limited to specialized centers with required expertise and equipment. Advanced tools not ready for routine ICU usage. Task-based EEG, functional MRI for detecting covert consciousness, they have not yet been validated for such broad bedside usage. Access is limited to few centers, requires significant analysis expertise, not yet available for routine clinical decisions. Now, emerging physiological probes like event-related potentials, resting state EEG, TMS EEG complexity, and automated papillometry. These are all being evolved and trying to be evaluated for usage for consciousness at bedside. Next, once we have done the diagnosis, interventions in acute consciousness disorders. Currently, there is no intervention. Meticulous supportive care, avoiding secondary injury and early rehab is the only way we have. Supportive care priorities are preventing complications, mobility, early mobilization, and airway and nutrition. In early rehabilitation, it improves function and reduces ICU-acquired weakness. Multidisciplinary approach is used. The evidence is there, but promising, but we need more such evidence at the bedside to see what it actually does. Regarding pharmacological options, we have amantadine, zolpidem, and there are other investigational agents. But these are very primitive and preliminary stages. Neuromodulation and neuroregeneration, there are a lot of promising methods available, but again, there is a lot of limitations in actually seeing them used in ICU. There are very small studies, very trivial improvements, so we need more evidence in this regard. Regarding prognostication, recovery can occur over months to years in survivors. Guidelines caution against early withdrawal of life support based solely on these type of prognosis, must balance uncertainty versus risk of prolonged suffering. Now, self-fulfilling prophecy problem. Now, deaths with withdrawal of life support versus without, versus non-neurological deaths are not equivalent. Research findings need nuance translating bedside decisions and to see how exactly these early pessimistic predictions become self-fulfilling or not. Multimodal prognostication should be done, clinical examination, imaging, electrophysiology, biomarkers, and timing. No single indicator is accurate enough alone. Cardiac arrest models have been developed, yet uncertainty persists. But then we are talking here about all type of ICU patients, not just post-cardiac arrest or trauma patients. So we need to understand that just don't blindly utilize these models into your practice. It may not be what you are dealing with. The cases are varied and we must ensure and see all the modalities available to us before making a prognostication of bad. Regarding biomarkers and advanced signals, they are again preliminary stages. We need more research in this before we can actually use them at the bedside. So what we do know is that we need to avoid confounders, identify reversible causes, maximize the arousal, and repeat our assessment, not single assessment. Intervention is mostly supportive and rehabilitation. Prognosis, be cautious, especially in the initial stages. Avoid any premature certainty that this patient is never going to improve. Recognize self-fulfilling prophecy risk. Family communications. Consistent messaging is important. Always deliver empathic, understanding information as a single cohesive message. Do not give a lot of information which they cannot process. Make your information simple so that they can process it, and always be empathetic to their questions. Always have a structured meeting, use decision aids and consider their cultural and religious factor as well. Balance the assessment versus indefinite support. This is very important. Do not take decisions on day 1 or day 2, but that doesn't mean you take the decision at day 200. There has to be a balance on it, and there is no single correct answer as to which day is the best day. Exploring preference, early discussion of surrogate decision making is very important over here. So our ICU home flow is assess the confounders, do a serial assessment, in acute phase focus on preventing complications, cautiously prognosticate, and of course communication is absolutely vital here. So the most important problem that we face is the diagnostic, where we do not have any standardized tool. So that is why we are promoting to use these tools at the bedside and not just GCS. So how do you build a ICU program? Train your team, educate your staff on the disorders of consciousness, the taxonomy to be used, not just the GCS. Implement the protocols, engage multidisciplinary team, and of course track your outcomes. Monitor your diagnostic accuracy, what actually happens to the patient. Monitor their trajectory. See how your prophecies are actually working. Thank you for your patience.